challenge is called Total Amount of Points. Our football team finished the championship. The result of each match looks like x:y. Imagine that is the score of each game. Results of all matches are recorded in the collection. For example, this game would represent a 3-1 win. This would be a 2-2 tie. This would be a 0-1 loss. So clearly this is soccer football, not American football. Write a function that takes such a collection and counts the points of our team in the championship. Rules for counting points for each match are as follows. If x is greater than y, the team gets 3 points. That's a win. If x is less than y, which would be a loss, you get 0 points. And if there's a tie where x equals to y, you get 1 point for a tie. Notes, there are 10 matches in the championship, and it looks like the number of goals for either team won't exceed 4. And clearly they shouldn't be less than 0, right? A negative goal count would be gibberish. So yeah, go ahead and try this one out, see what you can come up with. This is a good problem. And then I'll go into my solution. I see they already have link in here, which is very good because I'm going to leverage some link methods that we've used in the past. Hopefully you remember those or enough about them where you could find them in a search. So I'm going to make some helper functions to help me deal with the stages of this. So first, I'm going to make a private method that will sort of get the score from any given string input that represents a game. I'll make it static, and let's call it get points from score. And it's going to take in a string representing a score, right? Notice our main input is an array of strings. You're going to have 10 of these match results, if you will. And so for any one of those strings, like this one, 1 to 0, it's going to tell you how many points the team should get for that match. That's the point of this helper method that I'm making right here. So before I even get to that, one thing I like to do is make another helper function that's just going to make sure that the score is in a valid format. And I'm sure it will basically not come up in their system. It's probably all properly formatted, but that's not realistic in the real world, so I'm going to write something up to try to handle that. I'll say validate score, we'll call it. And this will just issue a warning. I'm going to keep it simple. If the score doesn't come in this expected format that we received. So for that, let's see, validate score. We can say, we'll say if, we'll have these conditions that we need met, and if they're not met, I'm just going to say throw an exception. How about that? And we could say invalid score format. You could do something more meaningful here. So think about it. What do we need to ensure? We basically need this thing to be, it should be 3 characters long, absolutely, right? We know the scores won't even go above 4. In theory, with the real soccer game, if you had someone that got 10 or more goals in a game, this could break, but I'm going to operate within the parameters here. So I'll say if score length is not equal to 3, I'm going to consider that a problem. Or, and this, I strategically put this check first because I'm going to access characters in the score next. And if I tried to access them before making sure the string was an appropriate size, I can get errors that way. So now I can do something like score 0, the first character. And for that, what do we want? We want to make sure that it's a number. And so we saw something like this recently with the char class. We had methods to check if something is a letter. So you're probably not surprised to learn that there is a number version of that. And so I could say char is number. And then of course we want the negation of that, right? If it's not a number, then there's a problem. So char's number. This probably, well, yeah, I'm looking at an individual character, so we don't have to worry about a negative value. And they said they weren't going to do that anyway, but we don't trust people, so. Anyways, this will work. If it's not a number, or if, how about score 1? We want to make sure that's equal to a colon character. Notice I'm using single quotes here because I'm matching a character. Double quotes are used, they mean a string, not a character. And then finally, we could check that third character. It's going to be the same as the last one. If not, char is number, meaning if it's not a number, score index 2. That's also a problem. So we can. So yeah, those I think covers it. And then what I do is I'll take this and make it the very first statement, and then if there is a problem with the score, it just sort of blows up and I never get past this line, right? Once I'm past this, I know I have well-formatted input. So now we can get on to calculating the score. I'll do one I don't think we've talked about yet is the char class also has this get numeric value that you can use to convert a char that represents a number into an actual numeric value. The catch with this one is that it returns a double. So, you know, a floating point number, that's more than we need. We just need ints, and ints are going to be better for comparing, so I'll end up casting to an int. But this is the idea. You can get a numeric value this way. It's not the only way, but this is a different way, and so I'll invoke it. So char get numeric value, score 0, get that first number. And then what I'm going to do is subtract these things to figure out how to award points. I'll call it difference, and I'll take that first score, which is the team in question, their opponent's score. Remember to grab 2, which is that third character with 0-based indexing. And then finally, I'm going to tell it to convert this whole thing into an integer. And that's going to be cleaner for comparison. When you compare double precision numbers, there can be a little, it can be a little wishy-washy if you're off by, you know, 0.001 or whatever. So I just want it to be clean. That's why I'm casting to an int. Then once I have that difference, I can basically say if it's greater than 0, meaning the team scored more points than their opponents, I know they won. If the difference value is less, I know they lost. And then after that, it has to be a tie, and so award the tie points. So let's do that. If difference is greater than 0, we're going to return the win points, which was 3 if you remember for the instructions. Now one thing to help with this, I'm going to make some some constants to represent the point values. I'll go private, static, read only, int, and we'll call this points for win. That'll be 3 per the instructions. And then we can avoid the magic numbers. You can imagine if I just said return 3, you know, this, when you're not looking at the instructions when you go to work with the code, and you may stumble upon this, you start working with this company and you know, you're wondering why is it 3, you don't know. So we get rid of these magic numbers and we put values in there, and then it's like, oh, okay, that represents the points you get for a win. It's a lot easier to understand when you start looking at code. It also has an additional benefit that if you want to change your scoring system, maybe wins now become worth 5 points, you just change it in one place here, and then any places in your code automatically get updated that reference this variable. But we'll go back to the 3. And then I can basically copy this. If it's less than 0, we're going to do points for loss. And I should have finished those constants. Let's do that now. Make 1 for losing and 1 for a tie. And got to give them unique names. Points for loss. Call that 0. And our points for a tie was 1. So now we got these good. And so if we get past this, right, if the difference wasn't greater than 0, we fell down here. If it wasn't less than 0, then you know that the difference is 0, i.e. a tie, and you can simply return points for tie. Okay, I think that covers us. So now we have a nice way to translate right from a score to an integer point value. So then this is going to help us. We can sort of go over this collection of games using some link methods and, as they say, insert the magic. Let's get rid of this 0. Okay, and we're going to use a method that we've used in the past. I suppose it's been a little while. And this select one is very nice. You'll remember it projects each element of a sequence into a new form, and that's perfect for us. We want to take this string and we want to project it into collections of integer values representing points. So this is perfect. Let's use that. And we're going to use a Lambda function to specify how to make that conversion, which will be really easy now that we've done this. So let's give a variable name representing each item in the string array. I'll call it a score. I think that's aptly named. And then we have our lambda operator here, parameter, lambda operator, then we put the body in there, right? So now we can say simply get points from score on that score input, right? And this will transform each score into an integer value. And then this select, remember, is going to return a new collection, and it's going to be of the integer type because that's what the return type of get points from score is, remember? So we're translating. We had this games collection, which is still an array of strings, but the collection that's returned from select will be a collection of integer values. And so we'll chain on to that. Once we have this collection of integer values, what do? We've done this before, even recently. When you want to add them up, we know we have this sum method as part of link. And then I forgot to bring in the system library. That should cover us for this char class. Remember, we didn't implement char, so we're calling that, and we can access it when we bring in the system library. So this looks pretty good. At least covers the gist of what we want to do. Hopefully I didn't make mistakes, but we will certainly find out. I'm going to get out of full screen mode and then run the test. Let's see what we get. Okay, invalid score format. I made an error. What do we do here? Let's see if we can find it. Something with my validate score. If score length is not equal to 3, that seems okay. Valid score format 10. See, we know that this is a good format. There's nothing wrong with that format. So I know that I made a mistake in my logic here. Oh, I see it. So if you want to pause and see if you can find it, go ahead. And otherwise I'll fix it. We want to cause a problem if it's not equal to the colon character. I apologize if you saw that right away and were screaming at the video. We want it to equal colon, so we shouldn't throw an exception in that case. So let's try that again. Hey, there we go. Our favorite color with tests is green. So we'll do the larger collection of matches. And yeah, that looks good too. So we nailed it. I'm sure we'll see a lot more concise answers. That seems to be the going theme, but again, I try to do these things in a way that you might actually set a class up. So yeah, I mean, I recommend making these helper methods that can make your life very easy. We had the simple validation here, make sure everything's on the up and up with the score value. Then we could reliably parse it and do our calculations. These constant values read very nicely, tell us everything that's going on. And then yeah, it was a piece of cake with the link methods. Transform it into a bunch of integers and sum those up and return that as the total points for this soccer team season. This group of 10 games, their matches in the championship. So yeah, and you could see who had the most points that way. I'll go ahead and submit this. And then, yeah, okay. So these people kind of just did your basic bread and butter for loop and add 3 or 1, and they sort of, you can just skip. There's no point in adding a 0, right? Game sum here for the one-line wallies. You know, you can sum them that way and sort of get the integer values. You could, you can move that logic into the sum function, which, may be more appropriate. So that's a good one. And yeah, feel free to look through the rest. Otherwise, yeah, questions, comments, leave them below, and we'll keep moving. Thanks.